Greetings and welcome to Spin a Yarn Live, the Tea Time Book Club and Crafting Circle with Kitty. Maybe?
Serious. Oh no. Oh, he's being conscripted.
Oh. With Kitty.
With Kitty. Poor Osiris.
Oh, poor kitten.
He's being forced. Don't eat my cake. My cake.
He knows what he's doing.
My cake.
Alright, today's episode we are reviewing Summon the Keeper by Tanya Huff. Interact with the stream by going to Twitter at #yarn or Reddit at r/spinayarnlive and enter the discussion thread. Oh no, we have Kitty. And let us know what you are working on during the episode. What are you working on?
So, I still haven't finished that scarf that you guys saw me working on last week, but just to... I don't want this hook. Just to change things up a bit, and because I'm a little bored with the knitting, because it's a long scarf with the same pattern. I'm just going to do an infinity crocheted scarf, which the pattern is just a beginner pattern that I found at expressionfiberarts.com. You can go to her tutorial page, and you'll see the video that explains how to do this particular scarf.
And of course, I am working on the same old mess of cross-stitching.
Yeah, but you're moving along.
Somewhat. Okay, so, whoa. What, tea do we have? And I put the tea in the description below so you can get a spoiler.
Yeah.
In 3 seconds.
So we have today from our trip out west, Spice and Tea Merchants with spices, teas, and gifts, and we are having the coconut milky oolong tea. It's an oolong and herbal tea. Taiwanese oolong joins the smooth flavor of shredded coconut to create a creamy and delicate tea.
Well, does it now?
Well, we had this while we were out there, and I like it. It's a very nice tea. The coconut is not overpowering, which is nice, but you can just kind of taste the hint of coconut. So it'll probably go very well with my taro root cake. Yes. It's so good.
And it's still burning lava hot from my ickle mouth.
Paul does indeed have a little ickle mouth.
Mom is working on the same old Afghan.
Well, they take a while.
Yeah. Problem with these kind of projects is they sometimes take a while.
Is her wrist or pinky? What was it? That was...
yeah.
I hope that's better.
Yeah, I hope that's better.
Anywho, okay. Summon the Keeper, the first in the Keeper's trilogy. And here's a rarity. It's actually a trilogy.
Oh my goodness.
It's only $3.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's weird.
So this is a viewer
suggested, yeah. Read.
Yes.
Yeah, viewer suggested read and series. So we're starting with the first one here.
So one thing we're doing, and you can find this over in Patreon, which you cannot right now. I need to set it up.
Haven't you been meaning to set that up for a while now?
Yeah, I set it up for a while.
We've been doing this for almost a year.
I know.
Not that we've made any money, but, whatever, it's fun.
Well, because I don't hit the buttons after the episode saying charge for a thing, because I don't think we actually have any subscriptions. I haven't looked at it for a year, so that's my bad. But at some point, people of the future, if you want to suggest books for us to read, Patreon, one of the levels, you can do that. And when we do that, you can add your own little idea of why you want us to review it, what you thought about the book and whatnot.
Yeah, like, is it something you want us to read because you thought it was, like, terrible and that we'd get a kick out of it, like Twilight?
We're not going to read Twilight no matter what.
I worked at a bookstore while that series was coming out. I already had to read the series because I had to work on the party nights where, we opened the doors at midnight when the book came out. It was published on that Tuesday.
I don't know, maybe a $500 a week patron?
It won't cost a lot of money if you want me to read that series again. I tell you right now.
So yes, this was submitted by my mother.
Yo, mama. Yo, mama's so literate, she got more books than you.
She does. We have loads of bookshelves. No, she does. She does.
Thinks, oh, well, yeah, that's true. She's got all those different rooms.
Yeah. We're still working on our book collection. We only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess those count 6, maybe 7 full bookshelves, which is hardly anything.
Anywho.
Yeah.
Anywho.
So we like books.
We do like books.
So yes, originally when submitted, or when, way back in the day, like a year ago, I was complaining about the lack of female written books on this series.
Well, we both were.
We both were.
Let's be honest. I was the one who was all like, grumble, grumble, male sexism, grumble, grumble.
So my mother sent me an email with a bunch of
Kitty
authors that she enjoys. Oh, hi. And a synopsis of each one. And then later, for Christmas, she sent me this trilogy. Oh, boy.
Amongst some other books as well.
And a few other books, like another Quartology. What's the proper term for 4-book series? Trilogy, quadrilogy?
4-book series.
Yeah.
Saga! Saga! That's how it's usually done. The Dune Saga. The Star Wars Saga.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Anyways, so in the original email when talking about Tanya Huff, she had mentioned that Tanya Huff has a lot of different worlds in her head.
Yeah, I went on to a website that talked like Goodreads.com or something like that. Because I was curious about the author because her writing style took a little bit for me to get used to, and some of the ways that some of the people in the stories talk. And so I went, or in this book, talk. So I went on and found out she was a Canadian author. So I was like, okay, that might make a little bit more sense as to why things are a little different.
You also didn't pick up that Ontario was in Canada.
I failed geography, okay? I did. I straight up failed it in 4th grade or whenever the hell I took that test. Anyway. So yeah, I found out she was Canadian, and you know, I did a quick inventory, and I read pretty much mostly American and English books. So, not much from our neighbors to the north. And so I was like, okay, I can kind of see now why some things were phrased the way they were.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I have a better reference now for what's going on. But, you know, at the same time, I learned she does a whole bunch of different series. So this is, I think, one of the few trilogies she has. A lot of her other books are much longer. The series are much longer. And there's a sci-fi book that's quite series that's quite popular. I can't remember the name. I can see some of the covers because I was looking at them, but I can't quite remember. But if I were to describe this book in one word, it would be boring.
Oh no.
I am so sorry. There is only 25 pages of actual interesting stuff that happens at the very, very end. And for me personally, that was not enough for me to not be angry at this book. I didn't like it. I did not like it.
It was an odd book. It had it had loads of interesting ideas that could be developed.
Oh my goodness. We have a mouth or a hole to hell in the basement of this bed and breakfast, right? There's this magic seepage going on. All of these just possibilities of things that could happen. A vampire, 3 werewolves, and some of the Olympic gods come to stay. And nothing interesting happens. At all.
Yeah, it kind of felt like it was a mix between... Stop that.
I'm sorry.
Like the Callahan Chronicles and Fablehaven, where Callahan Chronicles is just a series of short stories. So you get introduced to a new character and get kind of their whole shindig going on. And then that's the end of that little story. Whereas this book, we kept getting new characters. They didn't really do too much. And then they disappeared. And I was like, oh,
they just
kind of interesting.
Like, So the vampire comes, and she's a singer. Okay, she's an entertainer, and she's very amorous. You know, ooh, Dean is interesting. Ooh, Claire is interesting. And I was like, ooh, maybe something interesting will happen. Nope. There's this stalker of hers, which isn't a stalker, but so Dean and Claire go to the pub to watch her perform. And I think, ooh, maybe something interesting will happen at the pub. Nope. That was a pointless scene. Pointless scene. You know, Hell talks to Claire. Hell tries to talk to Dean. You know, he can't. But, you know, and it's like, you'd think maybe something interesting. We get these little outbursts from Hell. Hey, the cat's alone. So? Oh, good point. It's like, why would I... There was no reason for those 3 sentences. I'm like, it talks to itself and it doesn't say anything interesting. It talks to Claire. Claire's mom advises her to not argue with Hell. I took this to mean don't converse with it at all. Instead, she talks with Hell just fine. She just doesn't argue with Hell. At one point, she apologizes to Hell for insulting it. I'm like, why are you apologizing to Hell? 3 werewolves come to stay, okay? I need to name them Tweedledee, Tweedledum, and Tweedledipshit, because they didn't do anything! You know, they stay for like 5 pages or something, and then they leave. The most interesting thing that happens is, oh, somebody left a muddy paw print on the carpet. Ooh. Dean is the most boring guy ever. You're not saying anything. I'm just ranting and raving about what is... I don't know if this is supposed to be like a sci-fi, or or like a fantasy book, like if that's where it would be. But I tell you straight up, this goes in the romance section. This is a romance book.
Yeah, it had a lot of romance
and a bad
tropes.
one. It is actually, I did this. I equated Claire to Bella from Twilight. I did. Because we actually get more of a physical description of Bella. It's a plain one, but we get more of a physical description of her than we do of Claire. Claire's 5'5" and has dark hair. That's it. Anyone can insert themselves into this character where 2 very attractive men, one's dead, but 2 very attractive men are literally fighting over her. Like, they literally get into a fist fight. How do you get into a fight with a ghost?
Okay, calm down.
Well, go on
then. Now one thing I did enjoy is the old Olympians. We're not going to get caught up with the name Olympians because Hades didn't actually live on Olympus.
Neither did Persephone.
But it was interesting seeing them old. I was kind of... When Zeus first started showing interest in Claire, I got really worried because, you know, Zeus, deity...
And Hera is there.
People generally don't get to say no to deities.
True.
And we got a little scene of him...
Trying to
basically, he felt a lot like Captain... Like,
Kirk?
Captain. No, yes, I was going for Kirk, but the William... Like an amorous, older William Shatner when he's like all... gained a little bit of weight.
Yeah.
Like if you... kept him in that kind of Kirk loving women thing.
Yeah.
Persephone was really fun. She was very sweet, but then also still like the myths. You know, she was willing to collect people to stay in Hades.
Yes. So she and Hades they can control Jacques because Jacques' dead, and they're the king and queen of the dead. You know, in Greek mythology. What an interesting concept. Jacques has to do anything that they say. He's just like their manservant. He picks up her knitting and moves things around for her. That's interesting. Hades goes down into the basement and talks to Hell for a little bit. What an interesting concept. Hell has this physical conduit. He could talk to Hades and do something interesting. Does he? No. He actually feels gratitude towards Claire for getting Hades out of there because Hades is old and senile. This scene could have gone somewhere. It could have gone somewhere interesting. But it didn't. It didn't go anywhere interesting. The most interesting thing that happens is that Claire gets turned into a plant. When Claire is going to turn herself back from a plant, she's angry. She's angry at Hera. And I'm like, ooh, magical showdown. This could be fun. And then Hel's like, yay, vengeance is one of mine. I'm like, ooh, okay, more interesting stuff. Yeah. She goes, oh no. And she calms down and nothing happens. Yeah. For the entirety of the book, I wanted Sarah to wake up. I wanted her to wake up so that something interesting would finally happen. 30 pages from the end of the book, she finally wakes up. And we have a very interesting and kind of tense scene. Ooh, what's gonna happen? But then everything turns very predictable. She, scatters Jacques. Oh, well, Dean grabs 2 of his light forces or whatever. Dean gets dropped into hell. Obviously, Jacques is going to be able to find him. What happens? Jacques goes and finds him and brings him back. And then Jacques' like, oh, okay, I'm better now that I've gotten some tail, and I think I can move on now. I had the one night with...
And I wonder if part of this, especially from Earth's perspective, is the whole, there's a trope called Seinfeld is dead. And this happens with the comic Peanuts as well, where... a lot of people grew up with Peanuts or Seinfeld.
Yeah.
And people nowadays, or both Peanuts and Seinfeld, were so influential in the world that when kids nowadays go to try and watch Seinfeld or read old Peanuts, it becomes super predictable. But that's because the world's kind of moved on and there's been a lot of...
There's been a lot of changes in comedy and all that stuff. But Seinfeld, I won't say Peanuts because, to be honest, Peanuts was never really my cup of tea. I never found them very funny. But Seinfeld is hilarious. Seinfeld's got a lot of comedy. It's got Kramer in it.
There's still people who, younger people, who they try and watch Seinfeld and they cannot. They find Seinfeld super boring
and predictable. I'm sure they do. But look, I grew up watching Seinfeld.
Right.
I like Seinfeld.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. I think this might be more of a product of its time.
Seinfeld. Yeah, 1998. No kidding. This is definitely a product of its times. And, here's my problem with this. I mean, I've got a lot of problems with this book. But here's one of my problems with this book. You know how I complained all the time about the old white male writers that we've been dealing with lately? And their sexism and, all that stuff where women are just not included in anything. This kind of flips the bill a little bit. Women are in charge. We never even get to talk to Claire's father. She talks to her sister and her mom a lot. And, talks to her father through her mom. But we never actually get a line from her father. The only men that we have are both obsessed with the leading female role. And neither of them... I would say Jacques is probably more intelligent. But... Dean is just big, pretty, dumb, and does the washing and cooking. Which, that's kind of an ideal male for some females. Yeah. But
and that's one of the things Mom was saying in in her follow-up email is that this book does flip some of the tropes.
It does flip
the
tropes.
So instead of having, a woman in the kitchen and, or like woman's secretary. And we see that also with the new Ghostbusters movie where we get Chris Hemsworth.
Who is pretty and...
big, pretty, and dumb.
Yeah, he's pretty and dumb, but he's funny.
And so we get kind of that take on this as well. Which, again...
We do.
At this point, again, talking about the whole Seinfeld is dead thing, at this point, what was I saying? Oh... I'm already, super annoyed with the trope played straight, so just switching the trope and not doing too much with it, this week didn't really do anything for me.
It didn't, because, again, here's the thing. It is a product of its times. So, what did this woman from the 90s do? Well, she flipped it. She flipped the tropes.
Well, yeah, it came out in 98, and she was born in 57. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, and that's fine. But it's not like there still isn't female stereotypes. Claire gets upset about something, so what does she do? She grabs a box of cookies and goes to binge on the sugar. And I'm like, that's kind of the female trope of, well, I'm upset, so I'm gonna go eat some ice cream, or I'm gonna eat cake, or, you know, I'm gonna eat something sweet to try to counteract this feeling of upset that I have. Her sister, on the other hand, seems to be more of a modern woman, I guess. I do like her sister, who shows up, again, not nearly enough to... Apparently she shows up more in the trilogy. So we'll continue to read the trilogy, but don't expect me to hate on it any less.
Yeah, no, the sister was done well. Yeah, later in the book, we started getting some really good descriptions. Yeah, the whole idea that Mrs. Abrams was the virgin that wasn't a virgin, I feel like for the period, again, that would have been more, but at this point it was less surprising.
It was less surprising. So there's a line that Mrs. Abrams has very early in the book, which actually made me think she's going to be a very interesting character. She's not. But there's a line in the book where she's obviously an old white woman, and so she's complaining about immigrants who are in the neighborhood, and she says, "Oh, but I love immigrants. They make such interesting food." And the way she says it, they make such interesting food. It can go either way. Either, you know, they actually make ethnic food that is very interesting to eat, or they themselves make for interesting food. Maybe I've read too much. Maybe I've read too much of Dresden and Mercy Thompson and all this stuff with Faye who literally eat people. But I thought, oh, cool, interesting character. She's a creature who's been corrupted by hell and eats people. How cool! No.
Yeah, I didn't get that at all.
That's what I thought.
Though I will say,
it's gonna be so cool. No.
Mrs. Abrams also kind of really reminded me of Hyacinth from...
Yeah. Hyacinth Bouquet. Yeah, from Keeping Up Appearances. A little bit.
Yeah. So that was always fun.
I didn't really get the twist with the dog, though. The dog was a hellhound?
Yeah, the dog was a hellhound.
So why was the dog so incredibly loyal to Mrs. Abrams? Wouldn't he have just been crazy? I mean, I don't really get it, because he was obviously very loyal to Mrs. Abrams and really wanted to rip Sarah's head off.
That's true.
I kind of understand that the dog was sent out before Sarah got put under the Sleeping Beauty spell.
Yeah.
So, okay, I can kind of understand that maybe his...
little tiny...
Yeah, like his goal was, you know, go and kill Sarah, and that way our hold...
And then she got put beyond a shield so he couldn't find her, and then...
Yeah, he couldn't find her, but then he's mean to everyone else. He bites the postman, he attacks kids. I mean, you know, he's mean to everybody, but not Mrs. Abrams. Also, I never really thought about this until just now. If he got released when all of this happened, Mrs. Abrams was 15 years old. She's in her 60s now.
Yeah.
That dog has been around for that long and nobody noticed? Not even Mrs. Abrams was like, geez, I've had baby for such a long time. And it's
she also had a lot of things in her mind messed around with.
She did, that's true.
So, yeah, she didn't really seem like she was all together, though she did see Spy Jack, which was a interesting build-up that actually built up throughout the book, is we see her see Jacques at one point, and then later she invites some guy in to basically remove the spirit from the house.
Well, we don't know if that's exactly what her intent was, but we do know that
it definitely feels like
professor, it. Yeah, the professor got a hold of Jacques, but Jacques was too powerful. Yeah, because Jacques is given flesh, and I can't. It's too weird. It's too weird. I don't get it. I don't get. Maybe again, this is a product of the times. Why was it so weird to Claire, the age difference between her and Dean?
Yeah, I don't know either.
That was weird to me. I was like, it's a 7-year difference.
Now,
she's 27 and he's 20.
To be fair, the whole creep formula is half your age plus 7, and that would be 20 and a half would be the youngest that she could.
Yeah, but he says he's going to be 21 in a couple months.
Yeah, so he's at the lower end of that.
He's at the cusp of it, but I don't know. Again, maybe this is a product of the times.
Yeah.
You know, of it being the 90, but...
I mean,
It's just that I had a friend in high school. Well, high school. I knew her since she was 4 years old. Her parents, there was a 12-year difference.
Yeah.
Like, her mom was way younger than her dad. And it, like...
And that...
It wasn't a thing to me. It wasn't weird.
Yeah.
Because they were happily married. I mean...
Well, then there's also, especially in the 90s, the idea of cougars being much less acceptable than older men with younger women who
but
don't
she's
really
not
have
a cougar. To be a cougar, my understanding is you gotta be 45 or older to be a cougar. And you gotta be after someone who's in their 20s.
There's like a different... It's terrible sexism, but there's different cats for each age range for this. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, cougars are, I think, like you said, 45 to 50.
Interested 20-year-olds, yeah. I didn't know that.
I don't even know how I found this at one point, but...
Okay, but, so while you're looking that up, allow me to list a couple of other things that I had issue with this book. Mainly, it was the introduction of ideas that went nowhere. Now, Dean's not dead. Dean's still traveling around with Claire. So maybe this will go somewhere, but
yeah.
When Claire is trying to talk to him about what's going on, about, it's magic. Magic is the short answer. Here's the long one. And she's trying to explain things. She talks about how, these accident sites are sites where something of either great good or great evil happens. So, for example, if you sacrifice yourself for the life of another individual, that can be the site, or something can happen of great good. Or the opposite. You sacrifice somebody else for your own benefit. Okay, that could be the site of great evil. Just like at the hotel.
Yeah.
Now, right before she says this, she asks Dean, do you understand the concept of good and evil? Because apparently she doesn't think that modern kids understand the concept of good and evil. Weird enough. But he talks about how he was raised by not a vicar. What did he say? He was raised by a preacher or a priest or whatever. His granddad was a priest. And his parents, both of them, and he says this, he outright says it, they sacrifice their lives so that their child can live. They throw him out of the burning building, like into a snowdrift or whatever. They perish in the fire, but their son lives. And I'm sitting here going, okay, well, clearly Dean is special in some manner. And even her mom, Claire's mom, is like, he's very grounded. And I'm sitting here going, okay, again, I've got too many different fantasy worlds in my brain. So, like, grounded, say, from a Dresden perspective, might mean he'd be a good conduit because he's grounded. Okay? Like an
Dresden does like his puns.
Right! So that's what I'm talking about there. But he doesn't really seem all that special
and we get that line where and this might be something that is explored in the full trilogy, and that might be when a lot of our questions get answered, is
I hope
in the longer trilogy, because we get that line with Austin the cat, basically saying that Dean is a hero
with capital H,
and which makes sense in that classic hero stance. Yeah. I just saw a very interesting YouTube channel about, like, what type of hero is Batman, and goes through all the different types of heroes that exist and makes case for him. It depends what
Batman you're talking
exactly.
about.
But yeah, so the classic
hero,
I mean, they were less mortally right. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like a modern interpretation of a classic hero like Superman, or somebody who's a Boy Scout.
Right. Okay, yeah. Boy Scout. So that's exactly how I would describe you. Dean is Captain America from the Golden Age. Boring, bland, and perfect. God, I hate that. Sorry, he is not interesting. He's got two character identifications. He's OCD about things being clean. Okay, he wanted to dust Sarah. That's weird. And then he knows a lot about cars.
That's true.
Neither of those are interesting enough for me. I'm sorry. Also, the idea that both Jacques and Dean have feelings for and fight over Claire, Jacques I can kind of see, because Jacques, That's his personality. He's French, he's a womanizer, he's actually called stereotype by Dean. That was actually funny.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, he is. He's a total stereotype. That's funny. But I don't understand what makes Claire so likable. Why are these two men fighting over her? We have not seen anything that would make her endearing. She's
mainly a grump.
She's mainly a grump. She's not,
which
she
is
doesn't,
fine because...
Yeah.
But, even Dresden, who is a grump...
He's a grump.
He also, has...
But, so, she's... I'm so sorry, I had to straighten that. Dean is young, and Dean is a bystander. Fine. She still doesn't give him near enough credit. She treats him like the way that the Ghostbusters, do to Chris Hemsworth's character.
Yeah.
Treating him like he's an invalid, like he's a child who has no idea what he's doing. Then give him the knowledge. Even Dresden finally gives Karen Murphy all the knowledge she needs. I mean, yeah, it took a while, but he never thought she wasn't intelligent. He always thought he was just trying to protect her from the knowledge. But here, she goes ahead and gives him some. She doesn't tell him that a vampire is staying here. She doesn't tell him 2 werewolves are staying here. She doesn't she tells him that the Olympic gods are staying there, but only because it's kind of friggin' obvious. Yeah. And you can't do anything about that. And he's disappointed because he's not going to get to hear about one of his grandfather's old friends who used to be an actual Olympian. He is so bland, but not nearly as bland as Claire. like I said, it's just like Bella. This is why I put this firmly in the romance section of a bookstore, because you can easily see yourself in this position, because all we know is that she's 5'5" and has dark hair, and that's it. And that's about all we know about Bella as well, except Bella's got clear skin. That's the only other thing. So I am sorry, but I did not like this book.
Yeah, I feel like, and we'll see what happens with Trilogy.
Yes.
But I feel like with more knowledge, I can go back and think of this book, and in my mind, when it condenses down, and this could just be because our generation has less attention span. We've certainly been accused of that before. But, because definitely older movies tend to move at a much, much slower pace.
They do.
So for modern viewers like us, or even younger people, it almost becomes too slow. But thinking back on it, there's a lot of... I see a good story in there, but the build-up with Sarah and the Helm... I would have appreciated a little bit more if the Hellmouth or whatever...
I know, we keep saying Hellmouth because I've been watching Buffy for a while. And it's basically because I keep saying it's a mouth into hell, so I think, Hellmouth. Yeah. So that's why I keep saying that, so...
the whole or whatever, it talks to itself, and we almost get 2 personalities appearing. We get an over-anxious one, and then a more pessimistic one. But they don't really... They also don't develop too much beyond that either.
They really don't. And then we get to near the end of the book where it gets an idea, and only one of them knows what the idea is. It's very strange.
Yeah, there was some confusion around there.
And I know, the thing about the story, here's the issue. I suppose what the story is the idea that Claire is there as the keeper to actually close the site. But, when we're there, there's the balance. Sarah being asleep is balancing out the hole being open. Everything's in balance. There's a seepage issue, but then Claire deals with it.
Yep.
There's no conflict. There's no bad guy until the very end. And I don't know, maybe because I'm a little bit more testosterone fueled than some women, something's got to blow up. There's got to be a fight scene. There's got to be something interesting. We only get one. And it doesn't last very long. And the end of it, like I said, is pretty predictable. Jacques goes, saves Dean. Dean's fine. Dean all of a sudden realizes, oh, I'm not a terrible person for hesitating for 2 friggin' seconds. That's annoying in of itself. Now, they say that that's annoying, so that's fine, but still. And then Jacques is like, oh, I had my one night with Claire. I can move on now. And I'm just... It's so weird. I don't know. I'm not used to reading these kind of stories. You know, I'm used to more action. I'm used to something happening. I'm used to if a vampire comes on the scene, something interesting happens. Or 3 werewolves, something interesting happens. The werewolves were almost fun. Like, because when the first Ron and Reg or whatever, when they first come in, they're like finishing each other's sentences. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Kind of like a pack mentality of they know what the other one is doing. We never got to see the third one, which is why I labeled him, you know, Tweedle Dipshit, because you don't get to see him.
Of course, yeah, the idea, again, it has a lot of interesting, makes you think about what things sort of way, but like the idea of them competing in a dog show, it sounds like, is what happened.
Wouldn't that have been hilarious?
Yeah, it would have been nice to see that.
That would have been hilarious.
But we just got told about it later.
Yeah, well, not even that. We just got told that they had trophies. And Dean's like, I could have sworn there was a dog on the trophy. It's like, oh, good. Werewolves who can easily pass for dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, because, again, speaking of this whole Seinfeld's dead, we have Hotel Transylvania. Not the greatest movie. It's kind of cute.
It's
I mean, it is Adam Sandler. But we also get, like, all of the monsters
all the classic
interacting
monsters.
with each other.
Yeah, all the classic monsters. You got Wolfman, who's now got a whole litter of pups in his family. Funny. We got the Invisible Man, who everyone keeps stepping on him because he's only wearing glasses. The glasses are the only thing that you see, and that's actually kind of funny, too. And then you've got
And then he
Frankenstein's
keeps saying
monster.
that he has a girlfriend or something.
He has a girlfriend, but she's invisible as well. And then they make a comment, like the Dracula makes a comment about how, oh, he doesn't want, you know, the human who's dressed up as one of Frankenstein's monsters to be with his daughter. And they're like, well, why? And he's like, we don't want her associating with their kind. And of course, Frankenstein's monster gets their kind. He thinks he's, you know, a Frankenstein monster, and he goes, I mean, with red hair. And then the Invisible Man says, what's wrong with red hair?
Yeah.
It's like, you have red hair. It's like, yeah, I do. And it's like, that's funny. This is not funny.
Oh, no.
Like, we get a couple of snarky remarks from the cat.
There's a couple of good ones.
Some of them are good. Some of them are good. They do make me laugh. I did like the comment about how if Dean had a tail, he'd be wagging it. And I was like, yep, he's just that dumb and loyal. Just like a dog. So I liked that. The mice versus imp thing was really weird,
and then
really annoying, and we don't get a payoff.
I mean, yeah, we get,
There's one imp.
We find an imp, but then we also, at the end, get a...
We get the mice, who are nice to Austin.
And they're wearing, like, little petticoats,
they're wearing waistcoats.
which is kind of funny.
It's cute that they're wearing waistcoats, but it's like... It was just... That was a conflict that was annoying and not needed. The idea that Claire was so sure that it was imps and not mice, simply because of the bright colors.
And the annoying part about that is just nobody believed her.
Yeah.
And, like, nobody was even willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, which is also... It kind of hurts the team spirit.
I mean, I guess the idea is that as a cat, he's not going to have team spirit. But it's like... I
But,
don't
like,
know.
even the vampire who could...
She said it smells like mice.
Well, and that's the other weird thing is the vampire could hear heartbeats.
Yeah.
And listed off all the heartbeats that we knew of, and then one other. But if there was a whole little pack of mice in different waistcoats...
Right, the one other was Austin. Because she said there were 4 life forces. There was Claire, there was Dean, there was Jacques, who was dead, and then there was the one that she raised her hand to and saluting an equal, another predator, and she talks to Austin.
I might be remembering that section wrong, because I felt like she also heard the heartbeat of the imp or something.
She heard the scratching of the wood above her. And so she says mice. And Austin says, that's what it smells like to me. Yeah. So it's kind of like, So it's like at that point we kind of get confirmation it must be mice because both the cat and the vampire say we smell mice. And Austin was feeding the mice his food. And even Claire at one point says she supposes it is possible that if these mice have been breeding in the guest house with the hole to hell underneath, then if the only side effect is they are brightly colored, then that would be great. That's the only side effect. So it's like, okay, here's an easy explanation.
Payoff for that would have been just brightly colored mice. Kind of like, they're not brightly colored, but like in Coraline, the dancing mice.
Yeah, the jumping mice. So at least that would have been interesting. But instead what we get is that the mice wear waistcoats. And it's like, okay, so it's kind of like the Great Mouse Detective. The mice are more intelligent, or the Secret of Nim. You know, the rats of Nim. They're a lot more intelligent. Is there anything else to this? Well, no. They just help. Well, what do you mean not yet? She's left the guest house. We don't get any more with these mice. All we know is that they've helped Austin out, and he only has one life left. Well, that sucks. I mean, I'm just...
Okay. So, good things.
Good things?
Rude.
I don't have anything. Do you have anything?
So again, Jack definitely felt like he had the most
Jacques was the most interesting person.
He had a lot going in. He had that he was a ghost. He had that kind of little mini battle with Miss Abrams.
Yeah.
To say that. We get to... There's a lot of... I feel like this book is written with a lot of lore behind it.
It would be nice if we knew any of it. That was another thing that really got to me. Is that when you have a situation like this, and I just think this is good storytelling. When you have a situation where you've got someone who's on the inside, Claire, who knows what's going on, and then you have somebody like Dean who's on the outside who doesn't know what's going on, it creates it creates this easy way of explaining things about magic and about the world. That's how you do world building, is you've got someone who knows what's going on with the world and you've got someone who doesn't. So the person who doesn't asks questions, and then we as the audience get the answer. Okay, so we're going around and we're looking at Augustus's sitting room and all this stuff, and we pull a curtain away and we see something called a postcard. What is it?
Yeah.
I still don't know what it is. We know that Claire can communicate with somebody through it if it's working.
Yeah, it seems kind of Magic Mirror-ish.
I guess, but it works two ways, because apparently one was in a brothel or a bar or something. It was a time, she could see that it was in New York Times Square. She bangs on the glass and scares some drug dealers. Okay, explain to me how that works. And how, if she's cut the power from the postcard by cutting it off from the seepage, how is it that her sister Diana is able to use it then?
That one did get mentioned because Austin was talking about, or Austin made some comment about how Diana was able to connect to an offline postcard.
Okay, that's fine. So that's in reference to Diana's power. Cool beans. But we also get questions like on Halloween. On Halloween, all of these different creatures come up to the hotel in an attempt to spread chaos, to trip up the keeper.
And yeah, a lot of the smaller powered ones, of course, were called by Hell because Hell put out like a call to bring everyone.
But then so at one point something shows up. We don't really get a description of it. It's her double. She opens the door and it's an exact double of Claire. And Claire's like, "Oh my god, really?" And the double's like, "Trick or treat?" It's obviously a lower powered, weaker, whatever it is. And Claire's
probably didn't want to do that assignment anyway.
Right. And it was just like, shoot. And Claire says it was probably a death token. Says, "I think it's a death token." Dean says, "What's a death token?" And she says, "Never mind about it." And I'm like, no, please explain. I have no idea what a death token is. I would love to know. explain. Dean actually has to question this time. That was great. Because he usually doesn't. He usually just kind of goes with the flow. Which, I suppose from Claire's perspective, makes everything a little easier. But from our perspective as outsiders who don't understand this world, just having the cat kind of sort of vaguely explain things to Dean is not enough. What is a postcard? What is a death token? Why this, that, and the other? Why is she using the off-brand Kool-Aid in order to see the fingerprints or footmarks of, you know, of the vampire hunter or even of the imp? Why does it work sometimes with the imp, but it didn't work in other situations? The world building and explanation is not done well, and it's frustrating. At least with Dresden, he kind of has the inner dialogue going where he's explaining it kind of to himself, or he's explaining it to somebody else, or he says things like, I would explain to Karen why this, but if I did, then this. At least that helps to build the world. This didn't do a good job, in my opinion.
Yeah, Google doesn't show anything for a death token, so I don't know if that's like a Canadian thing that hasn't made it online or not.
Something that hasn't made it online?
I know, that seems weird. The only thing that shows is that it's a word that was created by Shakespeare, like 90% of our words. Mm-hmm. But it means a plague spot, which doesn't fit with this.
Yeah, that doesn't fit with this duplicate of Claire.
So yeah, we didn't get an explanation.
We didn't. We didn't get a lot. And quite frankly, when the book ended, and I was surprised. Granted, so here was a twist that I didn't expect. Okay, that Augustus came back. Augustus came back to
that was
to the bed and breakfast. That was surprising. Not only that, he came back and he was asking about that busybody Miss Abrams, but in fact he was clearly attracted to her. I was like, that's actually kind of funny. That's kind of funny. That's kind of interesting. Wouldn't that be neat if something went where with them? But then with Dean leaving and everything, and then Claire leaving and all that, it was like, it's so obvious that he's gonna go with her. He's gonna drive up and pick her up in his truck, and they're gonna go along. Like, I was like, this is the most predictable ending after all, quite frankly, non-predictable stuff happened. Because I was like, ooh, vampire. She's amorous. She's, you know, interested in everybody. Nothing happened. There was an attempt on her life, but it was fine. It was solved quickly. She didn't even kill the guy. And
yeah, I think, again, it's gotta be more towards the times, because and some of the things I did enjoy as well, but like, because Mom was saying some of the things were turned on stereotypes. Like, we get a vampire, and one would expect, especially in the 90s, that a vampire coming to visit hell, basically, would be one of the bad guys. And she was kind of one of the good guys / just kind of a regular patron.
She was just a regular patron, which, I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, 1998, I don't remember when Buffy came out, but in the very first 97 or 98, something like that. But in the very first episode, we get Angel. And Angel is...
He's in the first episode?
He's in the first episode.
Oh, wow.
And he's not a stereotypical vampire. He's a vampire who's cursed with his human soul. So he's actually kind of a decent individual. But he has this great character flaw of, well, he still has all the weaknesses and stuff of a regular vampire like the Thirst. Kind of like Blade from the Marvel comic books. You know, he's a daywalker vampire, and he has a lot of their strengths and speed and that kind of stuff. But he still has the Thirst, and it's a flaw. It's a flaw that he has to work through.
Yeah, the series came out in 97, though the movie was 92.
Yeah, but the movie was really bad effects. I've seen the movie. That was really funny, actually. It's got terrible special effects in it. But it's just, you can mess with stereotypes, and you can break down your expectations, but still create an interesting narrative. This book did not do that. I was not interested. I really didn't care. By the time Sarah actually woke up, I had to slog through so many mini stories where nothing actually happened, that I was just like, I don't honestly care that she's here. Like, it's great that she finally is, but at this point, it's kind of obvious what's going to happen. You know, it was just not the most entertaining read I've ever had to deal with. And again, maybe I am jaded. You know, I'm used to reading things like Harry Potter, where we know from day one who the bad guy is and what Harry has to go through.
Yeah, that's a very...
And Harry Potter is not a well-written series. Its world building isn't very... Well, no, the world building is very good. But, you know, the rest of the story...
Moderately.
Yeah, moderately. Well, because we're watching it all from Harry's perspective. He's an outsider. He needs these things answered, and thus we get the answers. But in this, we don't get that. And it's kind of like... I mean, at one point... Dean is he's asking all these questions, and they're being very effusive about a lot of the answers. And then he asks Austin, he's like, well, what are you? And Austin, draws himself up, I am a cat. It's like, that doesn't answer the question of why you can talk. That doesn't answer the question of why your actual 9 lives seem to function the same way that Salem's does from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. At least Salem... He's a cat for a reason. He's a convicted felon. That's why he's a cat. He's cursed to be a cat for a century. That's his lot in life. Austin's just a cat. Why is he so intelligent? Why does he talk? Why?
Though I hear that in the second book, we're going to get introduced to another cat that has a backstory.
Okay, yeah, and I think...
So maybe that'll come back and we'll learn maybe a little bit more about Austin. I'm not sure.
That'd be cool. I mean, let's be honest. The first few Dresden books are not the best books in the world.
No.
As we said, Blood Rights is kind of when the series really starts taking off. We've got all the backstory that we need, and now we can really get into it. But again... It's a whodunit series, and from day one, we know that he's a private investigator. We meet Karen, we meet Bob, we meet a lot of other people, and we have a story. Who murdered these people? How did they do it? When is he going to do it again? How do we stop them? That's an interesting narrative. You want to know who did it. You got to look at all the clues and all that jazz. We know exactly what's going on. There is a hole to hell in the basement. An evil keeper is balancing out the power, and she's asleep. Everything's good. Everything's good right now. We're just going to stay. We're going to monitor it. We're going to figure it out. Oh, no, there's a seepage. No. I solved it. It's good. We're cool. It's like, there's never a moment of suspense. There's never a moment of, oh, gosh, what's going to happen. Even with Sasha... With the vampire, when the vampire hunter comes and it looks like he's almost gonna kill her, it's like you are invested a little bit because at least Sasha's interesting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, we don't really know her. We don't even know him. And she just turns around and leaves him with the vampire so that, the vampire can regenerate and whatever. And it's just like... Even if she died, we wouldn't really be affected, except we know that it would have caused hell to get all excited and everything. But it's not a character that we're invested in.
Yeah, get loose, undo the balance, and...
Right. But it's just like...
Whoops.
I don't know. But so, the vampire, if she served at least a little bit of that purpose, what purpose did the werewolves serve? The werewolves didn't do anything. One of them flirted with Dean once. And Dean, it went over his head because Dean's an idiot. And don't tell me it's because he's a virgin. That was also kind of the, flip the expectations. It was so obvious that he was a virgin. He was raised by a holy man. Yeah! That was also confusing. I was confused by the sexism of that. His grandfather wouldn't let any of his aunts raise him. Please to explain why that's... I know it's sexist, I'm just not sure how and why. I didn't get it. I was like, you're going to have to explain it to me because I don't understand.
So, it's clear we did not get this book.
We didn't really get it. But
there are some interesting characters, and some of those will be returning in the second book.
Good.
So, that's exciting. Yeah, maybe we'll start to get it more next time? I don't know.
Maybe.
We'll see.
But anyway.
But yeah.
So we're taking a bit of a hiatus. Sorry.
Oh, well, I was going to say, every book is different for people. I know, I was super enthralled with the Ancillary series, though that didn't go over well with some of our viewers.
And Ancillary was interesting and different.
Yeah, like for me, that just hit my buttons, as it were. And
well, in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah. And that's the thing is, especially with literature, there's, even when you narrow it down to sci-fi fantasy, there's still so many different styles that not everything is going to be for everybody.
Yeah, not everything's going to click. And I'll say this. Let me look real quick. Because I had as I usually do, I had the Nook version. Now, the Nook version was old. It was only like $3. And I think there were some mistakes in it. Because some of it didn't, some of the words were strange. So I chose to believe that it was an error in it. But what I didn't really like about this, the flow of the narrative especially, was when Hell would randomly put in its 2 cents. Like saying, ooh, somebody lied. And they go, oh, it's not a lie, it's exaggeration. Can we use it anyway? Hell asked itself, hopefully, oh, don't be such a git. And then it continues with the narrative as if it didn't break. The paragraph breaks in the page. From what I'm used to reading, usually indicate a scene break. Time passes and someone's in a different room or they're doing something different. But in these instances, it's just to show that Hell's putting in their 2 cents, and then it continues with the narrative. And it didn't work for me.
That's more of a style
and that's choice. That's absolutely more of a style choice. Tanya Huff's writing style is different. It's not something I'm used to. I don't want it to be a romance series. But this is. I mean, book number 1 definitely is. I mean, yeah?
I mean, it's a lot of things. I feel like its romance is slightly more focused on than even the fantasy.
I mean, the fantasy element is that one of the men who's after her is a ghost. But to me it reads like a romance. And I don't usually read romance novels. The closest I've gotten are the Twilight books. And this is pretty similar. 2 guys fighting over one girl. And they're both dreamboats in their own way. It's like... There's a series that we will read eventually called the Sabriel series. Now, there's a snarky cat in that series. That cat beat the crap out of this cat, I'll tell you right now. Mostly because it's not a cat. But, it's just kind of like... Anyway, my final thoughts I wrote some final thoughts.
Uh-oh.
My final thoughts were... It was boring. It was predictable once it actually got interesting. That was very predictable. Things were only interesting for about 20-odd pages. It wasn't funny. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't interesting.
So that's the book that you don't like.
That's the book that I didn't like. And I'm sorry, especially since it was, a fan-recommended book. I'm sorry that, I didn't care for it. It's just not for me.
Yeah, and I think it is just the times and some of the other things. I feel like a lot of it just comes down to that Seinfeld is dead trope.
I guess. But again, I grew up watching Seinfeld. Seinfeld's hilarious. It's not.
Well, that's what I'm saying is.
It's not funny.
It's the people who don't find Seinfeld funny, interesting, they find it boring, they find it stupid, etc. Kind of like you're finding this book.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess I fall under that category. You've just messed everything up.
It's a complete mess right now. Mess. I have no idea how I'm gonna...
Now, when I went researching this particular author, her sci-fi series is way more popular. So, this is not like one of the first books she's written. She started writing much earlier, so she doesn't even get the benefit of being a first-time author with this. But
Yeah.
Her sci-fi series, which has a female lead and everything, appears to have far more reviews and far more reviews in the positive. This kind of, out of 5 stars, it hovered around the 2.5 mark.
Yeah, and part of the sell on this one is just how many worlds this author can have.
Well, that's great. I hope in the other book she explains her worlds a little bit better.
Anyways.
Now that I've thoroughly ripped into this book, except not as thoroughly because I haven't even mentioned all the things.
Okay, anyways.
The elevator. Nothing went anywhere with the elevator. That could have been fascinating. Nope.
Yeah, like if each of these individual things were their own book, like if we actually had, like if we turned this trilogy into like Dresden Files, a longer lasting thing, and we had a book to just really deeply go into the elevator, it would have been much more of what I wanted.
Yeah.
But the like snippets was kind of like the Harry Potter movies to me, where the books,
actually got
which are very standard, fantasy books. That just happened to hit the right people at the right time and become super popular.
Like me.
Yep, like you. Got you into reading.
Got me. I mean, yeah, it did. I never read until I read Harry Potter. And then I found out what genre I liked. It helped that, there was no sci-fi fantasy in my house at all, because my parents aren't that kind of people. So. Yeah. Finally, I brought some in.
But, yeah, then the movies were kind of just, like, hitting the highlights of each one. It's like, oh. Now, apparently a lot of people who didn't watch or didn't read Harry Potter still enjoyed the movies, so which I could not fathom, because having read this series and seen the movies, I'm like, there's no build-up to any of these highlights. It's just like somebody's vacation photos.
Yeah.
But apparently people who didn't see it still liked it, so I don't know.
Which is fine. But, and it's hard. It's hard going from the medium of a book where you have as much space as you need to build up a scene and all, which is funny because, we were talking about last week with One Piece, how there's a particular scene in the manga that didn't really get as much of a build-up as it did in the anime. Yeah. Because in the anime, you're able to have the music, you're able to pace it for the audience, and it did a little bit better, in my opinion. Where with the manga, you've only got like the 1 or 2 page build-up, and because it's a graphic novel, you read it pretty quickly. If you're a fast reader, you just kind of flip the page, and this what's supposed to be very emotional, thing happens. And it's like in the anime, you've got the music, you've got the voice acting, you've got the pacing set by the director and everything. And it works a little bit better. But, in a lot of books versus movies, books usually have a much easier time being able to build something. Sometimes it's done well in the movie adaptation, and sometimes it's not. But, yeah, with this, I thought, when I first started reading the book, I rather thought that what it was going to be a trilogy about Claire being the caretaker here. Yeah. And her trials and tribulations dealing with the fact that she had to somehow seal this accident site. And at the same time dealing with stuff that was coming into the hotel and possibly causing problems. Like a vampire, like 3 werewolves, like a whole bunch of Olympians. And the shenanigans that would ensue.
And, of course...
But there were no shenanigans.
Oh, no.
And then when we get to the end... we have this very interesting and rather exciting scene where we get this interdimensional elevator, and we're like, oh, this is so cool. Imagine the possibilities. Imagine what could happen. What's Claire do? Claire wants to close it up and not go anywhere. She accuses the men. She says there's too much testosterone in this elevator. I'll tell you right now, that line pissed me off. I was like, excuse me? There's too much testosterone because they're curious, because they're interested, because they want to explore, and you are being a lame, boring individual and you don't care? I was so angry. See, that's another flip side of the sexism thing. That the woman, the lead, is being sexist against the men because they actually want to do something interesting that could actually be fun and interesting to read. Now again, I'm not your typical girl. Okay, I have a black belt, I studied chemistry, but I also have a degree in fashion design. I'm a weird person, but when I go to see a movie, if it's a romance movie, it gotta be funny. It gotta be real funny, or I am not gonna care. On the flip side, if it's got car chases and shootings and explosions and something like that, then I'm interested. Pardon me for being more of a dude. But it's just... So I thought that it was going to be a series where at the end of the trilogy, she would have found a way to seal it up. And maybe the second book, Sarah would have been awake, and it would have been this whole situation that could have been fascinating and drawn out and could have been clever and fun. We did not get clever or fun. We didn't get anything. And I've ranted for too long. So
you
anyway,
really have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, this book wasn't for us. Or we just didn't get it.
Maybe we didn't get it. I mean, again, I'm just so used to reading things that I guess are more modern. I don't know. I'm used to stuff actually happening. Yeah.
We might just not have the literature vocabulary to deal with this, but...
Perhaps.
Anyways,
that is our episode.
Our long rant.
For today. We will not be here next week or the week after that. But when we come back, we, I think, are finishing up Hitchhikers.
Yes. So, next up is the final Hitchhikers. Mostly harmless.
Mm-hmm. The book is, in fact, mostly harmless. Unless you get the omnibus and the leather like this. You could probably clock someone real hard with that.
And then, following that, even though that's like 4 weeks...
4 weeks out.
We're doing the Battle Angel Elitas. We're going to do 3 episodes for 3 books each. So, the first episode will be the first 3 manga.
Oh, okay.
And then second episode will be 4 through 6. And third episode will be 7 through 9. Unlike the Star Wars, where it was 4 through 6, 1 through 3, 7 through 9.
Yeah, we're not going to do it like that. So there's only 9 volumes in the manga?
Yes.
Oh, it's a short one. Okay.
It is. So that's going to be very short. And we're doing that because when the final episode that we do about Battle Angel comes out, that'll be about the weekend when the movie comes out.
Right. Is it coming out in June?
I don't remember.
I think it's coming out in June. I think it's a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if you're following along with us for what we are actually reading week to week, then we are indeed doing Douglas Adams next week for Mostly Harmless. And if you're following along with us for Keepers, when are we doing the second Keepers? Which is the second summoning, which to anybody it's going to be more interesting than the last one. The cover looks more interesting.
Yeah, we get another cat apparently that can actually work off Austin. Yeah, because with Claire, she mostly shut down Austin. I feel like Austin had a lot of snark in him that I think we'll be able to start getting more of with another cat.
Because there really wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get a lot of the scenes. Again, maybe it's because I'm not really a product of those times.
June 2nd. So, today was Keepers, Hitchhikers 5, first 3 Alitas, Myth 6, or Myth 5, because we had skipped that one, and Myth 5 is also kind of like the Keeper series. You read it. That's the one with where they go to Twixt. With the vampires.
Oh, yeah. That was, at least the vampires were interesting and funny.
Well,
I mean, they weren't as interesting and funny. Look, I will take those vampires, and I will take that story. I will take Robert Aspirin and all of his boring, sexist...
Yeah, you hated the first book.
I did hate it, but you know what? It had a narrative. It had a good guy, it had a bad guy, and it had a narrative that flowed. It wasn't a whole bunch of little mini stories that went nowhere.
Then we get Dresden Gins, and then the Keepers 2, Alita 4 through 6, and then we're going to start the Sabriel series.
Oh! Now there's a series with a fun cat.
Okay. So, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Sorry if this one was a little abrasive.
Yeah, sorry if I yelled a lot. I've seen the volume thing go up to red a couple times.
Oh no. Stop peeking the microphone.
I'm sorry. You didn't drink any tea.
Nope, it is nice and cold now. Okay. Until next time with Doug Adams 5.
Douglas Adams.
Well, Hitchhiker's 5. Yes, that thing.
See ya.